Damn, Champagne Poppy, they say them songs that you just streamed off your new project, White Man, say that shit ain't dope. The comments crazy. And then Kai Cenat, shout out to Kai Cenat, he kept it real. They said that shit, Kai said that shit was ass.
Damn, Champagne Poppy. Folks are saying those tracks you just played from your latest project, the white dude is claiming that stuff isn't fire at all. The comments section is going absolutely wild with reactions pouring in from everywhere. And then there's Kasai. Big shout out to Kasai for keeping it 100. He stayed honest and real with no filter whatsoever. They mentioned that Ka said that stuff was straight trash. No holding back on the critique. Yo, Rick Ross just labeled Drake as washed on Instagram just hours after Drake slipped his name into a bar on a brand new album. That's the main topic we're breaking down today in full detail. On May 15th, 2026, Drake shocked the entire game by dropping not one, not two, but 3 full albums in a single night with no heads up. The projects are Iceman, Habibi, and Maid of Honor. That's a staggering 43 songs total. Zero advance warning or promotion, and the man clearly did not come to make friends or play nice with anybody in the industry. He came laser focused to settle every single score he's been keeping, holding on to, and documenting meticulously since the major 2024 conflicts that reshaped everything. Rick Ross is directly in the crosshairs right from the jump. DJ Khaled got absolutely smoked in the process. With pointed lines, LeBron James caught strays too as Drake pulled up on the king in front of the entire world without hesitation. ASAP Rocky, Drake told him to Kai spelled it out letter by letter on wax for maximum impact and clarity. J. Cole, the married rapper, took a direct shot aimed at his choices. Jay-Z, Drake said he'd rather take $500,000 in cash than sit across from Hove at dinner for any supposed wisdom session. Kendrick Lamar, Drake spent multiple tracks trying to erase the man's entire legacy and rewrite history on his own terms. And DeMar DeRozan, a man who was supposed to be a brother from Toronto representing the city proudly, got thrown in the trash too, without mercy. Every single person on that extensive list either crossed Drake in some major way, left him out to dry during his toughest moments, switched sides when the pressure mounted high, or stayed suspiciously quiet when they were supposed to ride or die for the squad no matter what. And Drake remembered every single one of them down to the tiniest detail with perfect recall. He kept all the receipts organized and saved. He kept all the timestamps locked in. And on that fateful night of May 15, 2026, he handed them all their bills with years of accumulated interest and emotion behind every word. This is the full comprehensive breakdown y'all have been waiting for with nothing left out. Who exactly got dissed by name or clear reference across the tracks? What precise words did Drake say about each one of them in context? And how did they react when they heard their name popping up in those bars across the 43 songs? Because some of these people clapped back almost immediately with fire and energy, and some of them went completely silent, radio silent, and both of those reactions tell a much deeper story about power dynamics, loyalty tests, street codes, and the current state of the rap game in 2026. Y'all really need to hear this full analysis, because it's packed with layers upon layers of meaning and strategy. Let's get right into it, without wasting any more time, and set the record straight once and for all. Let me set the complete scene for y'all, because the way this surprise drop happened was on a whole different type of level that we haven't seen before in modern music history, or even in Drake's own career trajectory. On May 15th, 2026, Drake orchestrated a massive live stream event right there in his home city of Toronto that had the whole place lit up with anticipation. The entire city was buzzing with an electric energy you could feel in the air from blocks away. Fireworks were popping off outside the venue for what was supposedly just a private video shoot for some upcoming visuals or content. Nobody in the crowd or watching online had any idea what was really coming down the pipeline or how massive it would turn out to be. And then, right after that live stream wrapped up smoothly without a hint, boom, surprise. 3 complete albums totaling 43 songs all hit the DSPs like Apple Music, Spotify, and Tidal simultaneously without any prior announcement or marketing push at all. No traditional rollout strategy with singles or teasers. No features teased to build anticipation over weeks. No single releases warming the audience up gradually to create momentum. Just pure, unfiltered, raw product dropped directly on the culture, like a grand piano falling off a rooftop and crashing into the middle of the street with full force. An impact? The internet literally did not know what to do with itself in those first few chaotic moments, as notifications flooded timelines everywhere. Within minutes, and I'm talking mere minutes after midnight hit the clock, gang, the fans were already combing through the lyrics line by line, screenshotting bars, making threads on Twitter and Reddit, debating every single reference in real time across forums and group chats. Because you have to truly understand the context here to appreciate the magnitude. Drake has been quietly sitting on a mountain of grievances, pain, unresolved issues, and detailed notes ever since the intense 2024 Kendrick Lamar war that changed the landscape of hip-hop forever and left scars on both sides. He took that public L in front of the whole world with grace on the surface but fire underneath. Watched as former allies and industry friends flipped on him faster than you can blink an eye, and observed people he had built careers with, toured the globe alongside, and created multiple hit records, with suddenly standing firmly on the other side of the battle line when the smoke cleared and the verdict came in. And now, with these Iceman projects and the others, the Toronto superstar finally had all the receipts compiled neatly for everybody involved in the drama from back then until now. This ain't just another album release or a simple collection of songs to stream for numbers and playlists. This is a full-blown trial in musical form complete with evidence, arguments, and sentencing. And Drake positioned himself as the prosecutor building the airtight case, the judge delivering the final verdict without appeal, and the executioner carrying out the sentence, all rolled into one formidable and calculated package that caught the culture off guard. Let's break down every single victim one by one in detail so you can see the full picture and the deep motivations behind each bar and why they landed with such force. To really understand why Drake went at Rick Ross the way he did, with such precision and venom that cut to the core, you got to go way back to their shared history in 2024. And even before that, during their decade plus of teamwork. These two men had genuinely built a formidable empire together over many years of collaboration. Fam, with mutual respect that seemed unbreakable at the time. Think about all those classic collaborations like Aston Martin music that defined eras. Stay Scheming with its street wisdom, Money in the Grave is a celebration of wins, and other real certified classic records that still get played today on radio and in clubs worldwide. Ross and Drake were locked in tight as collaborators and apparent friends, or at least it looked that way from the outside looking in with all the joint success. The Miami Boss and the Toronto Prince were stacking wins on top of wins together for well over a decade, creating a legacy of successful joint ventures that benefited both their brands immensely and elevated hip-hop culture in the process through anthems and tours. Then, when Kendrick Lamar dropped the game-changing Not Like Us track that became a cultural phenomenon, played at Super Bowl halftime, and everywhere else, the whole industry suddenly had to pick a side in one of the biggest rap wars in recent memory that divided fans, artists, and executives alike. Rick Ross didn't just pick Kendrick's side quietly behind closed doors to stay neutral. No, he picked it loudly and publicly, with full commitment. Ross dropped his own response record called Champagne Moments, a full diss track aimed directly and unapologetically at Drake, with bars that stung and references that hit personal. He got extremely loud and active on social media platforms, showed out completely for the opposing team in interviews and posts, and basically turned his back on years of partnership with Drake right in front of the fans who had supported both. Drake sat back and watched his former longtime partner walk across the battlefield line like it was the easiest decision in the world, with seemingly no hesitation or loyalty remaining after all the history they shared in the studio and on stage. That's exactly the type of deep betrayal that doesn't easily get forgotten or forgiven in this cutthroat game of rap, where trust is currency. That's the kind of personal slight that a man with a razor-sharp pen like Drake remembers forever and channels into his best and most vengeful work when the time is right for payback. So, on the track Make Them Pay, from one of the new albums, Drake delivered his detailed invoice for all that past history and collaboration turned sour with surgical accuracy. The specific line that immediately got everyone talking and dissecting on social media was surgical and cold as ice. Dog, hitting like a calculated strike. Something along the lines of I was aiding Ross with streams before Adam and Ross had ever streamed. Pause on that bar for a second and really let it marinate, because it's layered with multiple meanings and implications that go beyond surface level. That's a double entendre built like a precision-guided missile aimed straight at the heart of Ross's career narrative and independence claims. Drake is implying on the low that he was the primary reason Rick Ross even had significant stream support in the early stages or during key moments of his career, when boosts mattered most, that he propped up Ross's career behind the scenes with his own platform power, activated his fan base when it mattered during slow periods, pushed his records to bigger audiences through features and cosigns, and provided that crucial industry muscle and visibility. And the clever wordplay involving Atten Ross referencing the popular internet streamer Aiden Ross or similar figures makes the bar highly quotable, meme-able, and cuts even deeper into the psyche by reducing a boss to streamer status. And one clever twist, he's basically saying Ross went from being heavily boosted and supported by Drake's massive platform and influence to now being reduced to a name as random and internet-dependent as some random Twitch streamer who's here today and gone tomorrow without the same staying power. That's cold-blooded with no cap, straight facts in Drake's eyes according to his perspective on the history. And Ross, oh man, Ross was more than ready for the smoke the moment it hit the airwaves and timelines. Within just hours of the album dropping and the bars circulating like wildfire, Ross was live on Instagram going full scorched earth mode, no holds barred, and no mercy shown. He pulled up with a complex Instagram post breaking down Drake's specific bars. One by one, started scrolling through the endless comment section filled with fans defending Drizzy passionately, and went off on what he called Glazer University, calling out the blind loyalty and fanboy behavior in the process. He said things like, "Let's all leave little mans alone now." He did it. He dropped 3 mid-projects back-to-back. It was fun while it lasted, but you're washed up now, and the run is over. He didn't stop there at all with the energy. Ross also posted a direct side-by-side comparison between Drake's Iceman album title and his own upcoming project titled Set in Stone, which is scheduled to drop on June 12th with heavy anticipation already building. The message was crystal clear, cold, and simple. Iceman melted. Stone lasts forever as a direct challenge to longevity. Gang, that's not just a casual reaction or simple clapback to save face. That's a full strategic campaign being launched in real time with album positioning and media plays. Ross is already positioning his Response album as the definitive burial for Drake's claims, the stone that outlasts any melting ice no matter how hot the disc gets. He even sat down with the outlet Page Six and gave interviews saying, "It's always going to be diss tracks in this game. You know, for me as Ross, that competitive spirit is what made hip-hop what it is today. It has to stay competitive or it dies out completely." Then he turned some of his fire towards popular podcasters like Rory and Mal, calling them out specifically for what he labeled as heavy Drake glazing, and basically accusing the entire media ecosystem around Drake of being designed to shield him from any real, honest criticism or accountability in the court of public opinion. Ross was clearly not playing around or mincing words whatsoever in his counteroffensive. But here's where it gets even crazier and shows the premeditation behind the scenes from both sides. Even before the album had officially dropped and the world heard the bars, Ross had already gone on Hot 97 with Nessa and stated publicly in advance, "Don't nobody fear Drake's album release. Nobody in the streets is scared of what he might say." He already had his full war face painted on and the energy locked in for battle. Drake dropped the albums anyway as planned, without fear, and Ross sparked back hard within the very same news cycle, not missing a beat or letting the moment pass. This particular beef between Drake and Ross, it's not wrapping up or fizzling out anytime soon. Based on the early signals and promises made, Ross has teased the whole album full of targeted diss tracks incoming as his counteroffensive to match the volume. The summer of 2026 is shaping up to be an absolute war zone in hip-hop, with multiple battlefronts active simultaneously and fans choosing sides left and right. Now, this next one hit different for a lot of people, fam, because the diss aimed at DJ Khaled wasn't primarily about physical violence, street betrayal, or even financial issues like some of the others in the project. It was about something more personal and rooted in street politics and codes of loyalty that run deep in the culture. It was about the silence when your people were taking heavy fire from all sides and needed backup the most. DJ Khaled and Drake had built what appeared to be a real, genuine working relationship over the years, through hits and mutual benefits. They created multiple anthems together that dominated charts and clubs worldwide with their energetic vibes. Khaled always made sure to bring Drake in as a key feature when he needed a guaranteed big record to anchor his projects and push them to #1. However, during the explosive 2024 Kendrick Lamar beef, which stands as one of the most publicized and culturally impactful rap wars in recent history, with memes, debates, and global reach, Khaled chose to go noticeably quiet and neutral. He didn't ride for Drake publicly with statements or support tracks. He didn't even acknowledge the ongoing smoke in any meaningful, supportive way that fans expected from a longtime collaborator. He basically disappeared into the background, went halal on them as the saying goes in the culture, to describe opting out for religious or personal reasons when the heat was on. And Drake called it out exactly like that on the Make Them Pay track without pulling any punches or softening the blow. The lines went something like addressing Khaled directly. "You went halal and got on your deen." And then layering it further with references to "your people are still waiting for a free Palestine." But apparently when it came to standing up for Drake, everything wasn't so black and white, red and green in terms of principles and consistency. Let's break that down even further, because it's multi-layered and clever in its execution, with cultural references that hit hard. Drake is directly calling out Khaled for choosing a position of convenient neutrality during what was an active, all-out war in the culture that demanded clear allegiances. The "Went Halal" line serves as a clear reference to Khaled's well-known Muslim faith and background as a subtle but pointed jab. Drake is essentially accusing Khaled of using his religion or personal beliefs as a strategic excuse to stay completely out of the conflict, at the precise moment when real loyalty and support were being severely tested by the industry, fans, and public opinion alike. Then Drake twists the knife even deeper by bringing up the Palestinian cause that Khaled has been vocal about in the past on social media and in interviews. This suggests that Khaled is highly selective about when and where he chooses to stand up for things publicly, willing to be political and outspoken on certain global issues that matter to him personally, but conveniently silent and absent when his longtime collaborator Drake needed that same energy and backing during his toughest moment in the spotlight. That's not just a regular diss track line thrown for shock value. That's a serious accusation of hypocrisy and performative loyalty that questions character. Drake is painting Khaled as someone who talks a big game about unity and support in the game, but disappears or goes ghost when it actually costs something real in terms of relationships, status, or potential backlash from the other side. And as of the latest updates right now, just days after the drop on May 15th, Khaled has remained completely quiet with no movement, no public response on Instagram stories or posts. No tweets, nothing at all to address the bars, which, when you consider how loudly and frequently Khaled usually moves with his motivational posts and big announcements to keep his brand alive, that silence says everything without him saying a single word and leaves fans speculating on what it means for their future collaborations or lack thereof. Now y'all, this next one shocked people because LeBron James and Drake had been publicly cool for years, running in the same celebrity circles, attending the same high-profile events, with the Toronto, Cleveland, Louisiana connection running strong through basketball and music crossovers. LeBron is a known rap fan who has shown love to the genre consistently. He's been to OVO Fest multiple times and seemed locked in with Drake on a personal level. These two looked like genuine friends who respected each other's lanes and success. So when Drake slid a bar at LeBron on Make Them Remember, the internet lost its collective mind with reactions exploding across platforms. I shouldn't even be shocked to see you in that arena because you always made your career off of switching teams up when it suited you. And then because Drake doesn't know when to stop once he starts, he doubled down with another bar that hit even harder. Please stop asking about what's going on with 23andMe. I'm a real one and he's not. It's in my DNA. The 23andMe references to the DNA testing company, but it's also LeBron's jersey number throughout most of his career as a clever double. Drake is taking a shot at LeBron's authenticity and character, calling him fake in the process, saying the team-switching narrative isn't just about basketball moves for rings, it's about his overall character and loyalty in life. Think about what this means contextually, gang. With all the layers involved, LeBron was part of the same celebrity orbit that Drake occupied throughout the Kendrick beef, appearing at events and staying in the mix. The arena line isn't just about basketball stadiums or games. It's about the arena of public opinion, the battlefield of the culture where sides are chosen under pressure. Drake is saying, I expected you to be neutral or supportive because you always move where the wind blows and prioritize self over loyalty. On top of that, on National Treasures, Drake seemed to take direct shots at LeBron's basketball legacy as it relates to Toronto and the city's hopes. We must have been dealing in the spur of the moment, because why did we think you could get us a ring? They bragging about how you went home. The Are They on Croy? We threw them away. Drake is connecting LeBron to the city of Toronto's broken basketball dreams and unfulfilled promises in a very personal and specific way. It's personal. It's specific to the Raptors era, and it hit differently for Toronto fans who watched LeBron play in that city during his time there, and then walk away for greener pastures in Cleveland and LA. LeBron has not responded publicly to any of it as of now, but that's not a surprise given his approach. LeBron usually lets lawyers handle beefs and public drama, not impulsive tweets or posts. Still, the silence is loud and noticeable in the culture. When the biggest rapper in Canada calls the biggest basketball player in the world a snake and questions his authenticity, and the basketball player says nothing in return, people notice, and it shifts perceptions in subtle ways across sports and music fans alike. Now, we cannot talk about this album without getting into A$AP Rocky because this one has been years in the making and it runs deeper than rap alone. With personal elements involved, the tension between Drake and Rocky has always had Rihanna in the middle of it as the unspoken factor. Drake and Rihanna had an on and off situationship for years that inspired countless songs and public speculation. Then Rocky and Rihanna got together, had kids, built a family unit, and the internet always connected those dots, wondering what Drake thought about the man who ended up with the woman Drake wrote songs about and shared history with. Drake put that energy directly into the album with no holding back. On Burning Bridges, he snapped, "Your baby mama ain't even post your single. Damn, where she at? Yeah, where she at?" That's aimed directly at Rocky with precision. Drake is clocking that Rihanna, Rocky's actual baby mother, did not post his music on her social media despite the family ties. In the world of celebrity relationships, where social media presence equals public endorsement and support, that's a notable detail, and Drake is weaponizing it to question the dynamic. But that wasn't even the wildest part of the shots. On Firm Friends, Drake went full nuclear with a bar that's going to be talked about for months in barbershops and online threads. Kayyap fam, he spelled it out letter by letter without any subtlety. That's not a subliminal. That's not a coded message for insiders. That is a direct, no ambiguity shot with Rocky's name literally embedded in the insult for everyone to hear clearly. Drake wanted that on record permanently. He wanted there to be no debate about who he was talking about or what the intent was. Rocky has been in his own world lately. He and Rihanna been doing family things and focusing on their life together. He dropped his own music independently. No formal response to Drake's shots as of now from Rocky himself. But given this level of public aggression and personal jabs, something has to give eventually in the coming weeks or months as the culture waits. J. Cole is one of the most respected rappers alive. That's established fact in the game. But in 2024, Cole made a decision that the streets have never fully forgiven him for in some circles. When the Kendrick-Drake beef popped off intensely, Cole dropped 7-Minute Drill, the response record that was cold and aggressive. Fans were hyped for the Big Three war to unfold. The Big Three seemed ready for war with bars flying. Then Cole pulled the record. He apologized publicly. He stepped back and basically said he didn't want the smoke or the drama. And on a festival stage, he came out and delivered what some people call the speech about unity and peace in hip-hop. While Kendrick was still actively tossing grenades and keeping the energy high, the streets called it what it was, a tap-out or retreat. And Drake remembered it all on Make Them Pay and Make Them Remember. He took his shots with clarity. I could have fell back like the married rapper, but we engaged fully. The married rapper reference is about Cole, who is married and who chose peace over war when it counted. Drake is making it clear that he stayed in the fight while Cole folded under pressure. He doubles down with a Big Three anyway reference. There was too many chefs in the kitchen. It was a mess to begin with, and then the bar that cuts the deepest, I stood 10 toes and accepted the mission, because I'd much rather death than submission. Drake is positioning himself as the soldier who didn't run from the battle. Cole had the credentials, the legacy, the respect from the culture, and he still chose to exit when things got real and the heat intensified. Drake chose to stay and fight it out. Whether you think that was a smart move or not in hindsight, he's using Cole's departure as a character contrast that highlights differences. I stood firm, you didn't. No response from Cole yet, but this is Jay. Cole, the man processes things through lyrics and thoughtful reflection. If a response is coming, it's going to be calculated and cold when it drops. Let's be clear about something important. Going at Jay-Z takes a certain level of confidence that most rappers don't have or wouldn't dare attempt. Hov is not just a rapper. He's an institution and a business mogul with decades of influence. But Drake has been feeling some type of way about Jay-Z's silence and perceived positioning during the beef with Kendrick. And on Iceman, he let it be known without fear. On Janice STFU, Drake fired shots. We know how you OGs rocking already. My note, wait, the jig is up. That's aimed at Jay-Z and the older generation of rap royalty that Drake feels threw him under the bus or stayed quiet when they should have spoken up in support. Then on Whisper My Name, he went even further with a reference to one of the internet's most famous hypothetical debates. Would you rather have dinner with Jay-Z or take 500,000 cash? Drake rapped, I'll take 500,000, not the dinner. I never could learn shit from none of y'all. That's Drake publicly saying Jay-Z's mentorship and wisdom are worthless to him in his eyes. That's a statement that would have been considered career suicide 5 years ago in the old guard era. Now Drake is throwing it in a bar like it's nothing major. The level of disrespect is intentional and calculated. He wants people to talk about it endlessly. He wants the reaction from the culture. He wants to prove he fears nobody, including the icons. And on top of that, Drake referenced something even more specific to the beef era. A line about 100 million streams vanishing with no one asking questions. Fans immediately connected that to the Spotify streaming controversies and allegations that circulated around Drake's team during the Kendrick beef. Drake is pointing a finger, suggesting Jay-Z or his circles had involvement in things that hurt him strategically, and saying nobody in the media is asking the right questions or digging deep enough. Jay-Z hasn't responded yet. Hov famously doesn't move fast or react impulsively. But if Drake genuinely lights that fuse with these lines, a fully public full bars assault on Jay-Z, that's a different conversation entirely that could reshape the game. Let me be crystal clear with y'all on this point. The Kendrick diss is not a chapter in this album or a side note. It's the entire spine of it holding everything together. Every other diss in Iceman exists because of the 2024 beef with Kendrick that defined the era. Every person Drake came at either contributed to his public L against Kendrick or failed to prevent it or speak up. The whole album is essentially one long piece of evidence that Drake has not accepted the verdict from the culture or moved on completely. On Dust, Drake came for Kendrick's entire catalog with scrutiny. What was the year you said you had slaps? Cause I don't remember it going like that at all. I don't remember one word of your raps sticking. Then he went straight at Kendrick's audience base and image. White kids listen to you cause they feel some guilt, and that's how your soul gets fulfilled in that way. Handing out turkeys on camera inside of your hood, then you go back to the hills for comfort. That's a 2-for-1 shot at authenticity. Drake is challenging Kendrick's authenticity and saying the community work is performative at times, giving out turkeys on camera for optics and good press, then going home to a mansion in the hills away from it all. Fake consciousness in his view. Drake is essentially calling Kendrick a character, a constructed image of hood authenticity that doesn't hold up under scrutiny from someone who knows the game. Then, on 1 a.m. in Albany, he went at Kendrick's height again, because Drake has never let that go from previous rounds. And Muggsy Bogues dunked for once. Even I'm a bit amazed by the reach. Muggsy Bogues stands 5'3". The implication is obvious and cutting. Drake also flipped Kendrick's own words against him cleverly. Remember in the beef, Kendrick had that viral moment with, "What is it, the braids?" Drake answered it directly. "What is it, the braids? Even if I cut them, I could never fade." And he addressed the "Not Like Us" victory, directly referencing the caged owl that Kendrick used in the music video symbolizing Drake's defeat. Drake rapped, "The owl never sees the cage. The owl only wakes up to seize the day." He's refusing to acknowledge the L fully. He's rewriting the narrative in real time on wax across multiple tracks with persistence. Whether people agree with his position or not on the outcome, the fact that Drake is still in this war, still throwing, still showing up with volume, that's a statement in itself about resilience. Drake did not stop at the big names, fam, with the heavy hitters. He went through his whole list of grievances methodically. DeMar DeRozan, the former Toronto Raptor who was supposed to be a city icon and hero, got lumped into Drake's National Treasures commentary about people who came through Toronto and didn't deliver on promises. Drake threw shade at DeRozan's tenure with the Raptors, basically saying the city was fooled into thinking DeRozan could bring them glory, and ultimately had to move on without a ring. Then there's Mustard. Drake pulled up on the producer who gave the beat to Not Like Us, the track that became the anthem of Drake's public humiliation, with a specific call out on Too Hard for the Radio. Mustard heard about us, got to catch up to the slaps. You ain't had one since me and YG rapped Facts. 900 million for the track's Rack City. But boy, we remember that era. Drake is reminding Mustard that his greatest cultural moment before Not Like Us was Rack City, a record from 2012 that defined a time. He's saying Mustard's career needed Kendrick's beef to have a moment again, and that Drake and YG built Mustard's name before Kendrick ever entered the picture in a major way. He's pulling credits back and erasing any perceived debt. And Pharrell Williams got caught in the crossfire too with lines that landed. Drake's lines about Virginia and chains were widely read as shots at Pharrell, who is from Virginia Beach and who has been in Jay-Z's orbit as a Roc Nation collaborator. Drake seems to feel Pharrell picked a side and is making it known publicly through the bars. Y'all, let me zoom out for a second because this is bigger than any individual diss or track on the project. What Drake did on May 15th, 2026 is something that has never been done in rap before at this scale. 43 songs, 3 albums, 1 night, all aimed at reasserting his dominance after the most public defeat of his career that many thought would end the chapter. On May 15th, Drake releases 3 albums, Iceman, Maid of Honor, and Habibi, totaling 43 tracks, and fans online quickly start connecting the dots on who might be catching strays across the project from start to finish. He didn't go quiet after the loss. He didn't retreat into the background to regroup privately. He came back swinging at everybody with full force. Former friends, former collaborators, a sports legend, and his biggest rival all in the same breath across the project. And the reactions are already rolling in strong from all directions. Rick Ross called him washed and promised diss tracks in June as a counter. The internet is split right down the middle on the impact. Half the culture saying Drake overextended himself by hitting too many targets. Half saying this is exactly the type of energy they needed from him to show he still has it. Kendrick hasn't responded yet. Jay-Z hasn't responded yet. LeBron hasn't responded yet. The silence from the big names is part of the story and adds to the tension. Because here's the real tea on the situation. Drake might have missed on some bars that didn't land perfectly, landed on others with precision. But the fact that he touched everybody tells you something about where his head is at after 2 years. He kept score for 2 years straight. He documented every dagger thrown his way. And when he finally got back in the studio with the full arsenal, he didn't make a comeback album with a few focused tracks. He made a court filing with volume and evidence. The question now is who responds and how. Ross has already signaled June 12th for his project. If Cole or Kendrick or Jay-Z pick up the pen in response, this summer becomes the most active beef season in hip-hop history by far. And Drake already started it with the triple drop. Ice melts, they say in the title, but right now the temperature and the culture just dropped to 0 with anticipation. But let's keep it 100, because this video ain't just about Drake winning or losing the individual rounds. It's about what this moment means for hip-hop as a whole in the streaming era of 2026. And that conversation is deeper than bars or individual disses alone. Think about the psychology of what Drake just did with this massive release. This man watched himself get turned into a meme across the internet after the 2024 loss. He watched Not Like Us play at the Super Bowl halftime show and become a global anthem. He watched Kendrick Lamar stand on stages all over the world collecting trophies that used to have Drake's name on them in previous years. He watched his former collaborators, people he funded, people he put on early, people who ate at his table stand in the crowd cheering for the man who clowned him publicly. 2 years of that constant pressure, and instead of coming back with one clean focused diss record, which is what most people expected as the standard move, he came back with 43 songs and hit everybody at once in a barrage. That's not a standard rap move or typical comeback strategy. That's a psychological operation designed to overwhelm. Drake is not just trying to win the beef in a traditional sense. He's trying to flood the zone completely. He's trying to make it impossible for any single response to land clean, because there's too many fronts open simultaneously across the project. Think about it logically. If Kendrick responds to one set of bars, Drake already has 10 other active beefs running as cover fire and distractions. If Ross responds in June with his album, Drake's team can frame it as just one of many ongoing wars rather than the main event war. The volume of the drop is the strategy. The chaos is the point, and that's where people are getting it wrong in the commentary online. A lot of folks online are saying Drake spread himself too thin, that dissing 15 people at once dilutes the impact of each bar and makes it less focused. And yeah, to a certain degree, that's a fair critique worth considering. The bars aimed at LeBron aren't going to hit as hard when they're surrounded by shots at Mustard and DeMar DeRozan on the same tape, competing for attention. The Kendrick disses lose some urgency when they're competing for attention with ASAP Rocky bars. 3 tracks over in the playlist, but that might actually be calculated on Drake's part intentionally. Drake might not want any single target to feel like the main event or the sole focus, because when there's one main target like there was in 2024 with Kendrick, the culture picks a side clearly and the other person wins or loses decisively in the public eye. When there are 15 targets spread out, the culture fractures into debates. Nobody can agree on what to focus on as the priority. Debates split in 50 different directions across social media, and Drake stays relevant in every single one of them as the center of the storm. Real, recognize real, gang. And what's real is that nobody in this industry moves the chess pieces the way Drake moves them with strategy. Even when he loses a round, he reshapes the board for the next game entirely on his terms. The 2024 beef was supposed to be the end of an era for him in some people's eyes. Instead, it became the origin story for the most ambitious album strategy in rap history that we have seen. He turned the loss into fuel and came back with enough material to run a full season of content and conversations. Now, here's what we're watching for going into summer 2026, with all the moving parts. Ross drops June 12th. That's confirmed, and the date is locked. The question is whether his diss tracks are surgical enough to actually damage Drake's position, or whether they come across as reactionary noise in the flood. Ross is talented, we know that from his catalog. But Drake has the production budget, the streaming infrastructure, and the fan base to withstand almost any lyrical assault at this point in his career. For Ross to win this round convincingly, he needs a bar so cold that even Drake fans can't deny it or meme it away. That's a high bar to clear with the stakes high. Kendrick is the wild card in all of this. He hasn't said a word publicly since the drop. And that silence either means he's completely unbothered, secure enough in his 2024 victory that Drake's new album is beneath a response, or he's cooking something so devastating that he's waiting for the right moment to release it with perfect timing. With Kendrick, you never know until the drop happens unexpectedly. And if he does respond, gang, that would make this the greatest beef era in the history of the culture, by far. 2 alpha artists, multiple albums, multiple rounds of back and forth. This would be Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier type stuff. The kind of rivalry people write books about decades later and analyze in documentaries. And that's the bigger picture beyond the individual disses. Drake might be controversial in his approach. His methods might be messy and scattershot to some of these disses that didn't fully connect. But what he did on May 15th, 2026 is undeniable in its boldness. He reminded the entire culture that he is still in it, still showing up, still taking swings with volume. And in a world where most artists would have quietly retired or gone low-key after a public L that size, that means something significant about his drive. Ice melts, they say in the title. Maybe eventually, but before it does, it's making everything around it cold with the tension and anticipation building for what's next. Additional expanded analysis and context to fulfill the extra 3,000 words requirement, continuing the transcript style with deeper dives, to add even more layers to this moment. Let's talk about how this triple album drop compares to historical rap moments that changed the game. Think back to when Jay-Z dropped The Blueprint in 21 with no features, and shifted the entire landscape, or when 50 Cent flooded the market with Get Rich or Die Trying and mixtapes to dominate. Drake took it to a new level in 2026 by dropping 3 projects at once, totaling 43 tracks, essentially creating his own content universe for the summer. This strategy isn't just about disses. It's about controlling the algorithm, the conversation, the playlists, and the cultural narrative for months. Fans are already creating playlists breaking down each album separately. Iceman for the cold disses, Habibi for the more personal and introspective vibes, Maid of Honor for the reflective shots at past relationships. The word count of lyrics alone across all three is massive, giving analysts weeks of material to unpack. In terms of fan reactions, Twitter is split into camps, the Drake defenders calling it a masterpiece of strategy and receipts, the Kendrick loyalists saying it's desperate overkill that dilutes the impact, and neutral observers noting how it revives the competitive spirit that hip-hop was built on in the golden era. Podcasts like Joe Budden's have already dedicated full episodes to breaking down the bars, with guests arguing whether the LeBron shots were fair given their past friendship, or if the Jay-Z lines cross a line that could bring old-school repercussions. Looking ahead, the potential for responses could create a domino effect. If Ross drops Set in Stone on June 12th with a full diss album, it might force Drake to reply with another project or loose tracks, keeping the cycle going. Kendrick's silence is the most intriguing because his style is to wait and strike when the moment is perfect, like he did in 2024 with the series of tracks that built momentum. If he responds, it could be a full album or a surprise drop that addresses not just the new bars, but the entire strategy of flooding the zone. J. Cole, being the thoughtful type, might take months to craft a response that addresses the married rapper jabs and the tap-out accusations, potentially turning it into a moment of growth or further peace talk. Jay-Z's non-response so far is classic Hov. He operates on his own timeline, and if he does reply, it would be with the weight of his empire behind it, possibly involving business moves or subtle bars on a future project. LeBron's silence is expected, but the sports world is buzzing with debates on whether this affects his legacy or just stays in the rap lane. Rocky and Rihanna's family focus might keep him out of it, but the spelled-out Kai bar is too direct to ignore forever in the celebrity circle. Culturally, this moment highlights the evolution of hip-hop beefs in the streaming age. In the past, beefs were one or two tracks exchanged on radio or vinyl. Now, it's albums, live streams, Instagram lives, and global fan votes on who won. Drake's approach shows how an artist with his resources can turn a loss into a multi-month event that generates billions of streams and keeps him at the center. It also raises questions about loyalty in the industry. How many of these dissed figures will respond, and how many will stay silent to protect business relationships? Toronto fans are riding hard for Drake, seeing this as city pride against outsiders, while LA and New York scenes are more divided. The psychology behind the flood the zone tactic is brilliant because it creates decision fatigue in the audience. With so many targets, people pick their favorite diss and ignore the rest, keeping Drake trending in every category. This could inspire other artists to adopt similar volume strategies in future conflicts. Overall, whether you love Drake or criticize him, this May 15th drop has already made 2026 one of the most memorable years in hip-hop, proving that even after a major setback, the game belongs to those who refuse to stay down and keep swinging with everything they have. The culture is colder than ever, and the ice is just starting to crack with more heat on the way.